What if I told you that there is a framework for creative problem solving that can help you solve absolutely any challenge you're facing in your personal or professional life? I'm Chris Chapman, and join me for this collab hack. So this creative problem solving framework I want to share with you is called design thinking. Let me start with a little story and show you how the Listerine company applied design thinking to create innovation. So Listerine, let's go way back in time when they were in glass jars. They were yellow, looked like piss, and they probably tasted about the same. It was disgusting. I tried my dad's once and spit it out immediately. But the good thing for them, it worked to freshen your breath. Now, they wanted to improve what they were doing. They needed better market share. They needed to innovate. So they did some things. They changed the shape of the bottle, started using plastic. They did tiny, small ones. They did really large, big ones that were so big eventually you probably need a backpack to carry it out of Costco. They even changed the flavors to like Cool Mint and things. And this created some growth and excitement, but it wasn't really doing the breakthrough solutions that they needed. So they decided to apply design thinking. And in doing that, they first started with empathy for their end user, this obsessiveness of what does our consumer need, or the people we're in service of, like what do they need? So they went out, did a lot of market immersions and learning and listening and watching behaviors of their consumers. First thing they found out was good news, that Listerine is very effective and the consumers absolutely love it. So that box is checked. But they noticed something as they dug very deep into the experience of their consumer was that they couldn't really bring it anywhere. You know, you couldn't be going out on a night in the town to a bar and you want to meet somebody and say, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you. 1 second, reach and take out the tiny bottle and where are you going to spit it out, right? You can't walk into a meeting and do that. The problem was they couldn't really bring Listerine on the go for impromptu moments. It worked for your ditty bag, it worked at home, but it wasn't something you could do discreetly. So they defined the challenge as how might we at Listerine, for our consumer, our end user, create discreet freshness on the go. They moved into the ideation phase and they looked at a lot of options. They went for a quantity to find the quality. They tried gum, but they found in their testing, gum really, as we all know, only really masks the problem. And if there's anything worse than garlicky breath, it's minty garlicky breath. That kind of come here, go away vibes going on. They looked into a pill that you could digest. The research found, and they knew this, but they wanted to try it, that it's really about what's going on in your microbiome in your mouth. So that got pushed aside. And they even looked at like Banaka type sprays, but again, it wasn't discreet enough. They wanted to really live and check back into that empathy that they had for their end user. How can we make this as discreet as possible? While they were immersing in their inspiration for innovation, one of the team members had been looking at things going on in Japan around the medical industry and remembered that they were using rice paper to deliver medicine, strips of rice paper. They took that, they applied it to their insight and their solution and went to testing, and that is how they came up with Listerine pocket packs. Of course, they're not this big, tiny little packs the size of a quarter. They fit like right in that little coin pocket of your jeans. You can pop it in with no one noticing, and they are effective and work. This was a huge win for the consumer. Sales skyrocketed, the company's thriving, and they did something incredibly important for themselves. They didn't just ideate and stay on that same dusty shelf where all the toothpaste are and all the other competitors to mouthwash were. They got off that shelf, and part of the reason their sales went up is they were now not on the competitive shelf. They were showing up at cash wraps, the checkout areas where gums and other things were that were quick grabs at the last minute of purchase. And this was part of how they found their success using design thinking. So let me break down the basic steps of design thinking 1.0, and then we'll get into design thinking 2.0 and see how it's changed. So design thinking 1.0, you're starting with empathy, right? Empathizing for your end user. What are their needs, their behaviors, their psychographics, really being almost obsessed with how you can help them out. You're then defining the challenge, really important to spend time on that. You're questioning the question, you're challenging the challenge. If you're off by 1 degree in the question you're asking, you're often off by miles by the time you get to execution. Then there's ideation, going for a quantity of ideas to find the quality. moving into prototyping, this kind of make it real, make a minimum viable product, the least expensive thing that you can react to, and move into testing so that everybody from inside the organization or your consumers can actually use it, try it, see where it works, where is it broken, where it could be fixed. So that's design thinking 1.0. Essentially what you're doing here is you are using a designer's mentality to solve problems. This became very popular through IDEO, if you've ever heard of them. There's also Roger Martin, who is the dean of the Rotman Business School up in Toronto. He had some friends who were graphic designers, and he noticed as he was leading students to become MBAs that his graphic designer friends had a better approach to creative problem solving. So he wrote a book on design thinking. I highly recommend it. That's Roger Martin. And this became an excellent way to creative problem solve. Now, it's evolved since then because it's become even more of a powerful tool to take on some of the needs of complexity while also just improving itself and how it solves problems. Design Thinking 2.0 really is taking a step forward in macro simplicity, but in the specifics, dialing up some things I'll share with you. This is the approach that we use for design thinking in Imaginology. There are some others that have slight tweaks to them, but the principles are all the same. So the macro phases, if you will, are the understand phase, the explore phase, and the materialize phase. 3 simple steps to remember. They are modular, expandable, and contractible, meaning you can start in any phase, right? You can double back on any phase. The whole idea is that there's not just a step-by-step. That's why I like to call it a framework, not a process. So in the understand phase, the first piece you have here is you are going to deeply empathize with your consumer end user. There's the obsession, but the difference is Design Thinking 101 or Design Thinking 1 focused just on the end user. Here, you're showing equal empathy and care for all stakeholders. The team members that are ideating or working and developing this get as much concerted effort towards what their needs are as the consumer does. The stakeholders might be an executive also that is going to be funding this and putting their neck on the line to try a big swing, and it's keeping them up at night. We're making sure that everyone involved has equal level of care. We're diving deep into the business to understand it. We're using big data to help inform insights on top of everyone's personal experience of things they've seen, heard, read, or experienced. So we're really trying to crack still, what is the need of that end user and what's everybody's personal kind of perspectives and feelings about that. So as we start doing that and understanding what's going on, we then move into defining the challenge. As we define the challenge, again, we're bridging back into the empathy to make sure whatever we're doing here is connected to that question we're asking and really defining what the question is, what success criteria, and what scope, essentially. All of this can be checked in with each other, and once you feel like you have all the inputs and outputs of this phase, you're moving down into the explore phase. And in the explore phase, you're starting here with ideation. You're really bathing yourself in strategic and relevant inspiration from the understand phase to make sure you're inside the right playground. You're coming up with a quantity of ideas to find that quality. You're really spending time exploring the possibilities, but within a specific scope. You are also going to be prototyping and making that minimum viable product, very similar to the Design Thinking 101. You can see the DNA in that. You're then moving into the testing phase. So in the testing phase, you're starting to do that make, show, test, learn, both inside and outside the organization with your end users. You're learning from that. Sometimes that test phase can actually mean putting betas out into the market. And then you're finally going in to implement, where you're planning, creating sometimes presentations to sell through and help people operationalize or deliver what you're making and putting out there to get it to scale. What's really important as you see some of the commonalities of Design Thinking 101 is that here we also have systems thinking, which is kind of a new concept to it, in that we're checking consistently with the interconnectedness of all of these phases. So if we move in this direction, great, we're always checking back in here. Or we might got all the way to implementation and we have to go back and re-empathize and then re-prototype, retest on a concept. Again, modular, expandable, contractible. It can be done in one day, this whole framework in one hour, one day, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. So it can expand, and again, you can start anywhere. You could have an idea and start with an idea. You could already have something in market. You could already have a strategy. You could already have an insight. You could already have a prototype. You can bounce all around this. Other thing to think about is you're constantly iterating, meaning you don't just iterate for prototypes and ideas, you're iterating on your insights, you're iterating on defining the challenge. You're always going for a quantity to find the quality. And last but not least, one of my favorite pieces to this is that you're co-solving. When we think about empathizing, you're bringing the right people in the right room at the right time to ensure they're all collaboratively finding solutions and applying creativity. When I ask people where do they think creativity lives most, they often say, oh yeah, down here in ideation. You have to be creative in how you go and get your insights and how you approach everyone on the project. You have to be creative in how we strategize and define challenges. We have to be creative in finding novel and useful solutions. We have to be creative in prototyping, creative in how we test, not just traditional testing of putting people behind glass and a one-way mirror. It's like there's interesting, new and useful ways to even test ideas. So every single phase creativity is being used in. So that's Design Thinking 2.0. To show you some of the impact, Forbes had found a study with 30 different teams that tested out using design thinking in an organization. And out of all 30 teams, they found their projects had a median return of investment of 229%. We use this at Imaginology. We're finding the same thing. The return on this is phenomenal. It's not what drives us, making money is important, but it's nice to know that money is part of the fuel to get these things out into the world, and that there's an assurance that when you do this, it consistently works fantastically. Second, down here, which I care the most about, is people being as collaborative and creative as possible and really reaching their full potential. We were working with the president of Sony Pictures, and he had said after using this with us that it changed the way he leads while he also had those big business results. It's really a fantastic approach, again, to creative problem solving. So to give you kind of a macro recap of Design Thinking 2.0 again, remember, it's gonna be people-centered, not just the end user, but also everyone involved in creating the solutions. You're gonna have data-informed insights. You are not going to be data directors, you're going to be data curious. Data doesn't hold our feet to the fire. Big data is just helping us say, hey, there's something going on here to be curious about, but helps inform our personal perspectives and insights that we have from our lives. Systems thinking, we're always looking at the interconnectedness of everything. We're going to co-problem solve with everybody, having the right people in the right room at the right time. We're going to have iterative experiments, not just in ideas in every single phase, making sure we're kind of checking over and over to see, hey, would that work? Let's go even deeper into the quantity to find the quality. Remember, it's modular, start any phase, and it's flexible, expandable, contractible. It can be done again in 1 hour, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, and that creativity is absolutely used throughout. So to close this out, when you think of design thinking, a way to remember it is that design thinking is like taking steps closer and closer to a dartboard until eventually you're just pushing darts right into the bullseye. I'm Chris Chapman. This has been a Collab Hack. I really hope you found it useful. If you did, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. And as always, if you want to learn some more, just check out the comments down below.